Imagine for a second that you are standing in a small bakery in Buenos Aires. You order a simple café con leche and a media luna. You reach into your pocket, but before you can hand over the pesos, the barista stops you. He turns around, grabs a chalkboard eraser, wipes away the price, and writes a new one. It's 15% higher than it was when you walked through the door 10 minutes ago. You have a stable job, you have a college degree, and you have a suitcase full of cash. But you are effectively broke. Your life savings are melting like an ice cube in the Sahara. This isn't a dystopian novel. This was the daily reality for 46 million people in Argentina just months ago. But then, a man with unruly hair and a literal chainsaw appears on a stage. He promises not to fix the system, but to blow it up. He wins. And then, something impossible happens. In less than a year, a 211% inflation rate plummets towards single digits. The world calls it a miracle. The critics call it a massacre. What happens when a nation decides to perform surgery on itself without anesthesia? Is this the blueprint for saving the West, or is it a financial suicide pact? Let's pull back the curtain on the chainsaw economies of Javier Milei.
Before we understand the miracle, we have to understand the morgue. 100 years ago, Argentina was one of the 10 wealthiest nations on Earth. It was richer than France, richer than Italy, and rivaled the United States. They had a saying, richer than an Argentine. But for 70 years, the country became a laboratory for an ideology called Peronism, a cocktail of massive social spending, heavy protectionism, and a just print more approach to money. By 2023, the laboratory had exploded. The debt. Argentina was the IMF's biggest headache, owing over $44 billion. The currency. The peso wasn't money, it was a hot potato. Nobody wanted to hold it for more than an hour. The trap. To keep people happy, the government subsidized everything. Electricity, bus rides, gas. A train ticket cost less than a piece of gum. Hidden warning signs? There were no hidden signs. They were screaming from every headline. The central bank had negative reserves, meaning they were spending money they didn't even have in the vault. They were borrowing from future generations, just to keep the lights on today. But here's where it gets interesting. Most politicians would have suggested a gradual adjustment, a 5% cut here, a tax hike there. Javier Milei didn't bring a scalpel. He brought a chainsaw.
On December 10th, 2023, Milei stood on the steps of Congress. Usually, presidents promise prosperity. Milei did the opposite. He looked the nation in the eye and said 3 words, "No hay plata." There is no money. He didn't promise a better tomorrow. He promised a shattering today. This was the first time in modern history a leader campaigned on the promise of pain and won by a landslide. He immediately devalued the peso by over 50% in a single day. Imagine waking up and finding your bank account is worth half of what it was yesterday. That was day 1. In a viral video, Milei stood before a board with the names of government departments: Ministry of Culture, afuera; Ministry of Women and Diversity, afuera; Public Works, afuera. He cut the number of ministries from 18 down to 9. He fired 70,000 public employees. He halted all public infrastructure projects. If a bridge wasn't finished, it stayed unfinished. To the elites, this was chaos. To Milei, it was removing parasites from a dying host. Let's do the math on the inflation miracle. When Milei took over, monthly inflation was peaking at 25.5%. If that continued, the annual rate would have hit 15,000%. Total hyperinflation. Milei's team, led by Finance Minister Luis Caputo, implemented a crawling peg. They allowed the currency to devalue by only 2% a month while keeping interest rates high and spending at 0. By mid-2024, that 25% monthly jump had withered down to 3.5%. This is the miracle. It's the fastest cooling of a hyperinflationary fire in modern history.
Every month, the Argentine government now publishes its books. For the first time in 16 years, the country is running a budget surplus. Think about that. Argentina, the world's most famous deadbeat, is now saving money. How? By liquefying the people's purchasing power. By not raising pensions and wages as fast as prices rose, the government effectively taxed everyone's savings to pay off the national debt. It's effective, but it's brutal. This is where the story takes a dark turn. You can't stop 200% inflation without stopping the economy. It's like stopping a car by crashing it into a wall. Manufacturing production plummeted by 20% in the first quarter of 2024. Construction collapsed by 30%. When you cut subsidies for electricity, a factory's bill goes from $1,000 to $10,000 overnight. Many just closed their doors. The bull case says this is creative destruction. The bear case says Milei is turning Argentina into a graveyard. 6. The poverty paradox. Stay with me because this is the kicker. While inflation is down, poverty is actually up. At the start of 2024, poverty rates spiked to nearly 55%. Why? Because even though prices aren't rising as fast, they are still high, and wages haven't caught up. People are eating one meal a day so the government can have a balanced budget. Milei's bet is that once the cancer of inflation is gone, the body will heal itself. But how long can a person go without food while waiting for the cure to work? 7. The lithium and oil gambit. Milei isn't just cutting, he's selling. He is opening up the Vaca Muerta shale fields and the nation's massive lithium reserves to foreign investors with zero strings attached. He's telling Elon Musk and the global giants, come and take it. He believes that if he can turn Argentina into a free market fortress, the dollars will flood back in. This isn't just economics, it's a total cultural pivot from state-owned to sold to the highest bidder.
The moment of truth arrived in June 2024. The ley bases, a massive bill to deregulate the entire economy, was stuck in the Senate. Outside, the streets were a war zone. Tear gas, rubber bullets, and burning cars. The unions, the picketers, and the old political guard realized that if Milei succeeded, their power was gone forever. They threw everything at him. The result? Milei won. The bill passed. The shockwaves were immediate. Argentina's sovereign bonds, which were treated like trash for a decade, started soaring. Wall Street began to whisper, is he actually doing it? But back in the barrios of Buenos Aires, the price of a bus ticket had risen 700%. The winners were the bondholders in New York. The losers were the commuters in Avellaneda. Now, before you sit back and think, well, that's just South America, look closer. Argentina is the canary in the coal mine for the entire Western world. Look at the United States, the UK, or Japan. Massive debt, aging populations, and central banks that keep printing money to solve every problem. We have been living in a subsidized reality for 20 years. Argentina is what happens when the credit card finally gets declined. When you see the US national debt hit $34 trillion. When you see inflation in Europe staying sticky. When you see governments promising free everything. You are looking at the pre-Milei Argentina. Milei is a warning. He is the person who arrives when the polite options are gone. If the West doesn't fix its balance sheets now, a chainsaw leader isn't just a possibility, it's an inevitability.
What can we learn from this Argentine experiment? First, inflation is a choice. It's not a natural disaster like a hurricane. It's a policy. Milei proved that if you stop printing money and stop spending what you don't have, inflation will die. The miracle is just basic math applied with iron will. Second, the cost of sound money is high. There is no such thing as a soft landing after decades of fiscal insanity. To save the currency, you might have to break the economy. The question is a year of recession worth a century of stability? Third, narratives matter. Milei didn't win by being a boring technocrat. He won by being a rock star. He made austerity cool. He turned the budget surplus into a victory for the common man against the caste. Argentina is currently the world's greatest economic laboratory. If Milei succeeds, he will be the blueprint for a new global right-wing economics. If he fails, Argentina might not just be broke, it might be broken beyond repair. So, here is the question for you. If your country hit 200% inflation tomorrow, would you vote for the man with the chainsaw? Or would you stay with the safe leaders who got you there in the first place? Let me know in the comments. Are you Team Milei or Team Reality? Quick pause. If you're realizing that global finance is crazier than any fiction movie, hit subscribe. We're diving deep into the BRICS shift in our next video, and you won't want to miss how the US dollar is planning its counterattack.